Hi, I'm Caroline, and I've created a lot of things, but mostly I've created a life I love. Join me on my journey as a podcaster, business owner, and mom as I try to create all the things. Welcome to the Caroline Creates podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Caroline Creates podcast. Today, I wanted to chat a little bit about making connections when you can't travel. I have been seeing a lot of advertisements for conferences and retreats and things like that. And it always makes me get a little bit of FOMO because it's really hard for me to leave and to go places. So I am a homeschool mom, which is a really big responsibility. But also, my husband's job is pretty demanding and he works a lot. And so it's, I kind of run things around here. And also too, I just really enjoy being home. I love being home. I love being home with my family. I'm an introvert. I'm a homebody, and I'm totally okay with that. And also, the big negative for me for all these conferences and things is that they cost a lot of money, especially now. I feel like traveling has gotten so expensive and it's really difficult for me to, make the time and the money to go on these trips. In fact, what kind of spurred this episode was there's a conference I really want to go to, and I've been wanting to go to this conference for a couple years now, but it just always seems like they hold the conference at a time of year that just really is not good for me and my family. There's a lot going on that time of year, and that's kind of when we start school again for the year, and it just, the timing's always really bad. And so I was feeling really bad about it. I was feeling really blue. I was like, nobody's ever going to know who I am. I'm never going to be able to meet the right kind of people because I can't ever go to this conference. And I was like, wait a minute, Caroline, this is not true. This is absolutely not true. There are so many ways to make connections and to meet people in your industry, to find guests for your podcast that don't involve having to travel and go to networking events and conferences and things like that. So I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. So if you're a podcast host and you have guests, you know that it can be difficult to get guests on your podcast. It's really hard to schedule with people. And also finding the right kind of people, finding people who are willing to come on and talk is a huge thing. I think when we first started, it was a lot harder. And definitely as the momentum has grown with our podcast, it's gotten a lot easier to get people to come on and chat about their businesses and things like that. But it definitely was a little difficult at the beginning. And it was also kind of terrifying to ask people that we didn't know to come on the podcast. And so how did we find these people, first of all? Okay, so let's seriously say, we live in an amazing time. We are able to connect with people online in ways that, were never possible years ago. And it's amazing the number of people and connections I've made simply by being present on social media. And I'm not a crazy social media person. I'm not on social media all the time. I'm not posting all the time. I'm not commenting all the time. But we have been able to make some really strong connections that way. And I personally have been able to make some really strong connections that way. So Instagram is definitely a really great place to find guests for your podcast. We will search for certain things. If we see somebody pop up who's following us that we're really, just really interested in, or we feel like their vibe would really jive well, perhaps they do a lot of Instagram stories. And so we're able to see them on video and hear them speak and things like that. We have found guests that way for sure. And that's been really, really awesome. In fact, we're going to be interviewing somebody really soon that I'm super excited to interview because I fell in love with her Instagram feed. And it's just always really cool too when you kind of find somebody on Instagram and then you get to have them on the podcast and talk to them and put a face with the work and the name. It's such a cool experience. And a lot of those kind of podcast interviews too have then led to further relationships. And so we never really close the door when we have an interview. We hope that this continues to grow, that kind of thing. Facebook groups is another really awesome place to connect. I know some people really hate Facebook groups, and how I've kind of gotten around this is I only choose a few that I'm really active in. So I have a couple of groups. One is associated with a course that I took, and it's probably my favorite group because everybody is really invested in the group. They want to be there, they want to learn from each other. And I've met quite a few people on there that I'm kind of like, yeah, I want to connect with you and talk with you. I think it'd be fun. And so just like messaging them and introducing myself and being like, hey, my name is Caroline. I'm a podcast editor. I would love to chat with you sometime. I've, really interested in XYZ that you do, and I would just love to hear more about it, kind of thing. Always goes really far. The neat thing about being in these Facebook groups and interacting is that, you kind of start to notice certain people more, like they comment more, they like more, especially in our podcast Facebook group. And, because of that, we've been able to kind of connect and see what they're all about and even have some of those people on our podcast, which is really cool. I think the thing is, though, is like with the Facebook groups, you do have to be active. You have to get involved. If you want people to take notice of you, you do have to comment and, post every once in a while and that kind of thing. And it's not a sleazy thing. It's not that you're posting to sell. It's not that you're posting to like, be like, here, look at me. It's genuine connection. Like, what do you genuinely have to add to the conversation? Why should people connect with you? That kind of thing. You don't want it to be all about you. And I think if you approach it that way, you will meet some pretty cool people. So Instagram, Facebook, social media, that's one way. The other way that I have been able to network and connect is getting into circles online that have to do with my industry. So obviously being a podcast editor, I am definitely trying to learn from and connect with other podcast editors. And so finding out where they hang out, following different people who have to do with the industry, also just like getting in on their resources has been really, really super helpful. And, even finding like niched down Facebook groups. And so like I'm in a Facebook group specifically for podcast editors, and I met a few really cool people in there. And that's been really awesome. And again, like you kind of have to seek these things out and be committed to the process of commenting and liking and that kind of thing, and not being afraid to show who you are in these places. But definitely, I found that that's been a really, really great way to network. And also too, like it's really helped me kind of find like backups and things like that, other people who are doing what I do, because at some point I do have to refer people out, and it's nice to have options that way too. The other thing I want to say about conferences is, there's a lot of online summits and conferences and things like that. And so if money is really an issue and it's hindering you from traveling, like seeing if there's an online portion of a conference that you're interested in. So I know now like a lot of conferences will offer like virtual tickets where you can watch some of the speeches on the internet. And that's definitely something that I like to do. And then again, like online summits have kind of become a thing. And so finding an online summit that interests you, that you think would be neat, and doing that as well. The only thing about these that I find is difficult is the time, right? Because you're not leaving your house. See, that's the beauty of conferences and things like that is you leave your house. And so you don't have anything interfering with your time. You're not distracted. You can just focus on what you're doing. And if you're not able to go and you're doing it at home online, it can definitely be harder to focus and not be distracted. And so my tip for that is like, if you're buying a virtual ticket to a conference, like set aside a time like each week. And this is going to be like my conference time. Nothing's going to interfere with it. And this is when I'm going to watch like the presentations and things like that. And definitely, like, if you're going to spend the money on a virtual ticket, don't waste it. Like, put it on your calendar, schedule it, do it. That way you don't feel like you wasted money, but also that way you are still getting some of that experience. I also want to just really encourage you to get involved locally. So there are a lot of local like business organizations, things like that. There's the Rising Tide Society, usually the small like business associations in your city will have events. There's co-working spaces, things like that. Find a place where you can get involved and meet other business owners in your area. And you never know what opportunities can come from that, but also you never know what can be available. I know I ran across a co-working space the other day that hosts workshops for its members. And I was like, that sounds really cool. Like, that's something I would definitely be interested in. So that might be something I look into as the year goes on. I think it's really important to know yourself. I think it's really important to know where you feel comfortable and what you're comfortable and confident doing. And if going to conferences is not your thing, you don't need to feel like you're feeling left out. You don't need to feel like you're not going to be able to grow or make connections. I haven't been to a conference in years. And the choice for that really has been based on money, but also just the time and like being able to get away from my kids for that length of time. And honestly, like, I don't feel like I've missed out on anything. What I've done to supplement, again, is like getting involved in Facebook groups, taking online courses, things like that, finding other places to be involved online. That way I am not just sitting here stagnant, not doing anything. So, but if that works best for you, like, I don't want you to feel like you're not going to get anywhere in your business or with your podcast because you're not traveling to the other side of the country and going to a workshop for 4 days. So I really want to encourage you, if you're an INFJ introvert like me, to find some of these other ways to connect with people and, don't put so much pressure on yourself to travel and to spend the money and that kind of thing. And I'm sure that there are going to be some people who don't agree with this concept and this idea and this podcast episode, but at the end of the day, I've had to do what works best for me, and I've still been able to thrive and to grow my business. So that is all I have for you today. Next week, I am going to be chatting about music and intros and branding and why all of that is super important to establishing the feel of your podcast. So I hope you enjoy, and I cannot wait to chat with you next week. Before you go, please head to Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. I would love to hear from you. And to learn more about me and follow along my journey, head to www.carolinecreates.com. There you can also listen to episodes, watch YouTube videos, and find out more about my podcasting services. Thanks so much. Have a great day.